Now, Numbers cycles. The book of Numbers goes on a cycle. And these cycles happen over and over again. And here's what the cycle looks like. First of all, they have a problem. What's their problem? Their problem is they're in the desert. And when you're in the desert, there's no what? There's no nothing, so to speak, okay? When you're in the desert, there's no water, there's no food, you got all these problems, okay? And so there's hardship in the desert. So the people will face a problem. And then what do the people do? The people complain. And what do they say? They say, Moses, we wish we were back in Egypt where, we ate all these leeks and melons and we had all this food and water, the Nile River and stuff. So the people complain. Then what happens? God responds. Does God get angry at the Jewish people in the desert? Yeah, he gets, like you saw it, God gets angry, and it mentions God's anger like a gazillion times. And so God responds. A lot of times God gets angry at the Israelites. And then who jumps in after God gets angry? Moses jumps in and says, God, don't do it. Just take it easy on them and stuff. And Moses jumps in, and Moses then mediates then. And then what happens? It's kind of interesting. Does God relent? God, he's angry at Israel, is going to destroy them or do something, fire or snakes or whatever. And Moses does, and God relents. And then usually at the end of the story, there's a summary at the end that kind of summarizes the story. Now what I'd like to do is take a mini cycle, and I'll show you this whole cycle in 2 verses. It's what I call a mini cycle. 2 verses, this whole cycle, and then we'll look at a big cycle. So we'll do a little cycle, and we'll do a big cycle, 2-verse cycle for this pattern in Numbers. Numbers chapter 11, verse 1. Here's how it's 2 verses, here's how it goes. Numbers chapter 11, verse 1. Now the people complained about their hardships in the hearing of the Lord. So the people complain about their hardships. So what's the problem? The problem is desert hardships. By the way, is the desert a hard place to live? You better believe it. Okay, so desert hardships and stuff, and the people complain. Now the people complained about the hardships in the hearing of the Lord. Okay, so the people complain, and then what do you expect to happen next? God responds. Then, when the Lord heard them, his anger was aroused. Then fire from the Lord burned among them and consumed some of the outskirts of the camp. So God sends this fire, consumes things, and people, and other things, okay? Fire burns outside, and then what happens? Okay? The people cried out to Moses, and Moses, and he prayed to the Lord. So the people cry out, Moses gets involved, Moses prays to God, and what happens? The fire dies down. The fire dies down. All this is within 2 verses, this whole cycle. And then what do we need less? We need to pull it together as a lesson at the end. And so it says the place was called Taberah because there the fire of the Lord died down, or the fire of the Lord. Okay? So the place was called Taberah, so the place got its name about this fire that happened there. This all takes place in 2 verses. Now, I want to move to a big cycle. And the big cycle is one that Moses gets involved in personally here. And this has to do with the manna. The people get sick of manna and they want meat to eat. They don't like God's manna and they want meat to eat. So they come to Moses complaining about that. And this is okay. Now, before we do this, I want to just kind of set this up. The people complain, and what's God's response? The people complain. Does God respond in anger and judgment on them? The people complain, and God responds in anger and judgment. But what happens when Moses complains? When Moses himself complains, does God get his anger aroused? Does he judge Moses? How come when Moses complains, God actually helps him? And so what I want to do is make a distinction that's a really important distinction, I think, between complaint and lament. I want to make a distinction between these 2 words, complaint and lament. The words are exactly the same. They're both complaints to God. But the meaning is totally different. And that's why I think what's going on, why Moses gets helped and the Israel gets judged, is because of this distinction between lament and complaint. Let me use my wife as an example. I've been married for, I was saying 36 years, but I need to do the subtraction in my head, and it's too much up here, but over 36 years, okay? So we've been married a long time. Does my wife love me? The answer is after 36 years, you better believe it. I mean, she's been through me, you want to say thick and thin, but it's mostly been thin. And so, yeah, I know she loves me and stuff. We're about in our mid-30s. She was probably 35-ish, 36-ish. My wife is a very introverted person, a very quiet person, a very social person, but very quiet person. And I never heard, when my kids did all sorts of crazy stuff, I never heard my wife never, she's not a yeller. She never yells at my kids and things like that. She's quiet and an introverted person, as am I, when I'm outside of class. But it just, one day, I did something that was really stupid, and so she started hollering at me. And it was really like loud, and I had never seen her raise her voice like that as she started screaming at me. Now, this time we were living in a house that was about, have you ever lived in a city where the houses next to you are about, you can about put out your hand from the window, you can touch the house next, there's a sidewalk between your houses, and that's it. And so we had houses on both sides, the windows, it's summer, it's all open, and she starts screaming with this voice, like, it's like, holy cow. And I tell her, Annette, quiet down. I mean, they're going to call the cops and stuff. And as I try to quiet her down, guess what happens? Instead of quieting down, she gets louder. I didn't even know that her voice would go that loud. I'd never heard her do this before. And so I'm trying to kill her down, saying, these people are going to call the cops on us. They're going to think something's going bad here and stuff. And so, quiet down. She would not. She just kept on screaming at me and just, okay. Did she scream at me because she loved me or because she was so angry at me? Let me just do two different screams at me, okay? One scream at me is, you are such a jerk. I will never let you do, you should never do that again. That was the dumbest thing. I can't believe you. Okay. And she says then, I'm out of here. I never want to see you again. I've had it with you. I never want to see you again. I'm gone, man. What kind of gone is that, man? I am gone. I can't take that anymore. I'm out of here. Okay. Is that one type? Was that what my wife was doing when she was screaming at me? No. What she was doing is saying, Ted, you did it again. I will not allow you to do that again. You're a better man than that. I demand better out of you. And I will not let you do that again because that was just totally disrespectful and totally out of line and stuff like that. And you're better than that. And I will scream at your face until you become that better man that you should have been. Now, question, is that a totally different way of coming at it? The words can actually be very similar, but in the one case, she's screaming at me what? Screaming at me, grabbing onto me, saying, do better. I love you. You can do better. The one is coming at a person. The other one is bailing out. Do you see the difference? When Israel complains, they're doing what? Are they going after God or are they bailing out? They're bailing out. When Moses comes at God, is Moses going to get in God's face? Will he get in God's face? Yes, he will. I'll read some stuff here. Moses will get in God's face. He's not bailing out on God. He's coming after God and saying, God, this is not right. You got to do better. The difference between complaint and lament, what I'm really talking about is the book of Psalms. You guys know the book of Psalms because Psalms is psalms of praise to God, right? Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his hesed, loyal love endures forever. And we sing all the wonderful praises out of Psalms. Did you know that half of the book of Psalms is lament? Let me try. You guys learned Psalm 23, right? Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. What happens if you push that back one to Psalm 22? It sounds like this. And I don't even like saying this because I know where your head's going, and I don't want your head going there. Israel sang Psalm 22 for 1,000 years. Israel sang Psalm 22 for 1,000 years. It starts out like this. My God, why have you forsaken me? Israel sang that for 1,000 years. Now you guys all hear that and you immediately go to Jesus. But before Jesus, did they sing this for 1,000 years? Yes. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from my groanings? Or go back to Psalm 13 if you don't like that. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? Picture, you're in a church and some dude stands up and starts his prayer like this. O Lord, how long will you forget me forever? How long will you... Would that go over really well? The elders would pull him aside and say, do you understand? God doesn't forget you. God knows everything. God loves you and has a wonderful plan for your life. What does the psalmist say? The psalmist says, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? Okay? Now, that's in the book of Psalms. You want a really bad one? Most of the laments, you're right, most of the laments end on a positive note. And somebody was on my case last year saying, all the laments turn around into positive. No, you don't know. Psalm 88. I shouldn't even tell you guys this. Psalm 88, there's only one psalm in the whole that's a lament. And guess how it ends? Most of them come up for air at the end. Does Psalm 88 come up? Nope. It ends in darkness. Okay? And so what I'm suggesting to you is this is very interesting. Psalm 88 and stuff. So now, where do you go from here? The inability of Christians to verbalize lament. In other words, as Christians, everything's got to be okay. God's in control of everything. God has a wonderful plan for your life. God loves you and has a wonderful plan for your life. Everything's got to be okay. You as a Christian should always have a smile on your face because God is just so wonderful. Question, did Moses always have a smile on his face? Did the psalmist have a smile on his face all the time? And what I'm suggesting is be careful of the people that are high all the time. Also be careful of people that are low all the time. Is life lived in the ups and downs of life? Be careful about this Christian, everything's got to be cool thing. Because I'll tell you, is Moses the man of God? Listen to Moses as he addresses God. Moses heard the people wailing, basically because there was no meat to eat. And so Moses, this is chapter 11 of Numbers, verse 10, each at the entrance of his house. And the Lord became exceedingly angry, and Moses was troubled. And he, Moses, asked the Lord, why have you brought this trouble on your servant? Now question, is that a rhetorical question or is that a real question? Why have you brought this trouble on your servant? What have I done to displease you, to put the burden of these people on me? Did I conceive these people? Did I give them birth? Moses is saying, I didn't give them birth. You put all these people. I got to carry all these people on my back, God. I didn't give these people birth. I didn't conceive all these people. What is the implication? Who conceived these people? Who gave them birth? God did. And so Moses is using these rhetorical questions to do what? To accuse God. Okay? And so I skipped. Okay, let me finish this first, and then we'll come back to that. Okay? Why do you tell me to carry them in my arms as a nurse carries an infant to a land you promised on oath to their forefathers? Where can I get meat for all these people? They keep wailing to me, give us meat to eat. I cannot carry these people by myself. The burden is too heavy for me. Is Moses coming at God in a very, very strong way? By the way, is this Moses the man of God? Is he one of the greatest prophets in the Old Testament? Notice how he comes at God in a really strong way. What I'm saying is, these things are written for us. Now, are you supposed to discipline your children when you're angry? No. How many of you have been told you never discipline your children when you're angry? I ask you, how many of your parents have disciplined you when they were angry? Question, does God discipline his children when he's in anger? Yeah. Now, by the way, is anger a problem? Too much anger lead to violence and bad stuff. A lot of the guys I know are in prison because in an angry fit of rage, a guy stole his girlfriend. He went out and got a gun and killed him because he was so angry and jealous, okay? So anger can be really bad. But on the other hand, we live in modern culture, have we kind of castrated anger out of our being? And is anger appropriate? Does God get angry? We can't handle it as Christians. We love the God of love. God is love, peace. He loves everybody. Has a wonderful plan for your life. You guys have read Numbers. Does God get hacked sometimes? Yes, he does. And so you got to be really careful about stuff. God disciplines people when he's in anger. Is all anger wrong? Is all anger wrong? The New Testament says, be angry and what? Sin not. Be angry and sin not. When you see injustice, should there be anger? When you see injustice, there should be anger. Be angry and sin not. Okay, so in other words, there's a time to be angry and a time not to. Moses uses rhetorical questions then Not his rhetorical questions to ask questions. His rhetorical questions are he's coming at God. He's rebuking God. Rhetorical questions are often used by the prophets to rebuke the people, and in Moses' case here, he's using the rhetorical questions as a rebuke to God. Now here's another one. This is a strong one. Is it possible for a Christian to long for death? Is it possible for a Christian to long for death? This is Moses, the man of God. He says, God, if this is how you are going to treat me, put me to death right now. By the way, do I recommend that prayer for people? No. You're talking with God. Okay, what's the problem there? God can put people to death and stuff, so I don't say, does Moses have a phenomenal relationship with God? Yes, he does. Was Moses so down that he says, God, if you make me carry all these people, I can't do it anymore. If this is how you're going to treat me, kill me. Just take me out right now. Okay? Now, what does God do? Does God rebuke Moses? No. God helps Moses. And basically, God says to Moses, I'm going to take the Spirit on you, Moses, and bring the elders and the leaders of Israel together. I'm going to take the Spirit off you, Moses, and I'm going to put it on what? 70 people. Was Moses carrying a load of 70 people? No wonder why the guy was, I'm saying he's just down. He's carrying this load. It's too heavy for him. God distributes the load of Moses on 70 leaders of Israel. Okay? And so the spirit of Moses is spread. And that's a beautiful thing. With God deals with Moses. Moses gets in God's face, expresses, but it's the kind of thing where he's saying, God, do something. And God does something and takes the Spirit and puts it on these 70 people. So that's a really neat thing. Now, next class, we're going to deal with Numbers chapter 12. And Numbers chapter 12 answers this question. What does God think about interracial marriage? Now, that's not a big question in our culture today, but there's biblical data for that. We want to look at that next time. So, okay.